Welcome to Hub Hits. I'm Harrison Lowman, managing editor of The Hub. This month, Canada's largest city, Toronto, is 1 year away from a pivotal mayoral election. Toronto is a world-class city, says current mayor Olivia Chow, now in power for about 2.5 years. But for many Torontonians, doesn't look like that. Doesn't feel like that. They remember a city from decades ago that was much different. Look today at the homelessness, the open drug use, empty storefronts, or the crumbling city infrastructure. For more on that, I'm joined by Daniel Tate. He's executive director of IntegrityTO, a civic advocacy group bent on promoting transparent and responsible municipal governance in Ontario, and potentially a thorn in the side of Mayor Chow. Would you say that's the case, Daniel?
I hope so. If I am, I'm doing my job.
Okay, sort of as a watchdog accountability side of things here. So let's start with an overarching question. Is Toronto a world-class city in your mind, Daniel?
I would say no. At this stage, if we had world-class city status before, we've lost that status. Take a look around. People who, whether it's being stuck in gridlock, whether having draconian traffic management policies, the loss of important music venues, predatory development all over the place, and of course, the proliferation of harm reduction and homelessness, which makes things like taking our TTC system, our antiquated TTC system, by the way, even more difficult these days. There's a lot of issues that are plaguing our city and reducing the quality of life, and of course, affordability and housing and things like that add to it. So I think when you put all that together, I don't think anybody can realistically say we're a world-class city at this stage.
You told me the other day Toronto is dying. Why is that not exaggeration? Convince people who say, okay, he's kind of going overboard here.
Well, when it takes an hour to get from point A to point B within the city limits, that's a sign of a declining city. When you have draconian speed limits, major arteries that for decades facilitated the free flow of goods and people with reasonable speed limits, and those have now gone down to 30 or 40, and they're throwing up speed cameras. That is making it harder for this city to be competitive and have a vibrant economic climate. When you're handing out needles and meth pipes, and for the last couple of years even supply of opiates, which is facilitating a massive drug crisis. These are all things that tell anybody, look around, this city's in decline, and it all starts with leadership.
Who do you point the finger at most in terms of blame?
The mayor and city council.
But given that it's been going on for years now, like specifically at her, or is there other folks to blame as well?
Well, certainly the feds are culpable to a degree. The immigration file, as we know, is a federal file. And look, there's blame to go all around. But what we can say is at the city level, at the municipal level, when you walk out of your house and you look and you hear and you smell what's going on in your city, you immediately default to municipal government because their mandate is to have a nice-looking city, a clean city, a safe city, a beautiful city, a city that moves. And that lies with City Council, with City Hall, our local government. Who's the CEO of this city? It's the mayor. So I will always default first and foremost to the mayor on those particular issues.
And what have you made of her mayoralty over the last year plus?
Well over 2 years now. It's going to be 3 years very soon. And I think her term has been an abysmal failure. Absolutely.
How come?
Well, number one, her tax and spend policies tell everybody, including myself, that there is basically a war on the middle class. We are being taxed beyond belief. We've never, ever seen in the history of this city 25% property tax increases over the last 3 years. So there's a huge squeeze on property owners, a huge squeeze on the middle class. She's adding more taxes through other means, such as the speed camera program, which has taken another $75 million out of our pockets. And we're not talking about egregious speeding here. We're talking about people who maybe they went, 8 or 9 over on already very unrealistically low speed limits. Then, of course, there's the ideology stuff, the identity politics, the renaming of Dundas Square, which we all know was a scam. Like it's now truth. It's not even hearsay at this point. So All these issues tell us that our mayor and many of her progressive allies in city council are more concerned with these ideological projects that in their worldview is good, but we can see their failures. They're failures. Look on the streets. Homelessness has gone way up, and she still believes that it's appropriate to hand out drug paraphernalia, which basically enables and sends a psychological message that drug addiction to fentanyl and meth is okay. And the state, on taxpayers' dime, is going to hand out free needles and meth pipes and Narcan, of course, under some sort of guise of being a humanitarian. That only enables and proliferates the drug crisis, which has huge effects on our city. You know, when people are basically like addicted zombies on the streets of this city, it affects not just them, it affects everybody around them, us. People, you know, families who want to go to parks, people who see the horrible after effects of the drug crisis. So these are part and parcel of all the policies that I think has made Olivia Chow not fit for mayor.
And just to put some meat on the bone, in 2024 raised residential property taxes by, I think, 9.5%, 2025, 6.9%. Quite a steep increase. Is there anything that's gotten better in the city in the last few years in your mind, or is it all doom and gloom?
Well, it's not all doom and gloom, because we have hope and we have faith. And just like, wasn't there a Shakespearean play that said it was the best of times, it was the worst of times? Well, we're now in the worst of times, but just like the economic cycle, boom, bust, we're right now in a bust. But that means with visionary leadership, with good policy, with a new crop of city leaders, we can get back on the good foot. Right now, it's rough. The Jays, the Blue Jays, the Jays are kicking ass, and they're giving us Rush reunited, my favorite band. So those are two things that are really giving me some extra energy.
Daniel, when was the last time, you talk about inspirational leadership, when was the last time there was like a leader, a mayor in Toronto that had a thought-out, concrete vision for what this city should and could be?
Well, there's been a few examples. John Tory, love him or hate him, in his first term especially, had some visionary leadership. The smart track, although it didn't really come to fruition the way he envisioned it, it still was a very big, bold idea. Tory also had a thought about the rail deck park, which people thought was a wonderful idea at the time, which was to build a massive park up in the air near City Place. Now, air rights got involved and it got complicated. Again, it didn't come to fruition, but these are the kinds of big, bold ideas that we need. Rob Ford is another example. He saw how spending was getting out of control. He saw how that there was a lot of corruption in people who were basically enriching themselves in city government. A lot of people didn't like him because he had his own personal demons, and we know
that he
this.
then brought into council.
But he still answered every constituent's phone call. He had a damn good heart. We know this. And when he got to City Hall, the first thing he wanted to do was look at the books. Who was getting paid? He wanted to analyze all the contracts. He wanted to see where financial corruption and graft was occurring, and people appreciated that. And that's why he resonated with a lot of people.
When people come to you and they say, Daniel, does the city have an underspending problem, a misspending problem, an overspending problem? Where do you direct them? What do you say to them?
I would probably say overspending and misspending. The city has a $19 billion budget and growing. Is that an appropriate sized budget for a city of this size and for the services that we're receiving? People are saying that the service delivery and service quality is in accelerated decline. So how can we reconcile the fact that we're paying more than we've ever paid, yet we're receiving, and when I say we're receiving low, let's analyze it. Inefficient TTC service, unclean, unsafe TTC services. The public realm is in a complete state of disrepair. Benches, sidewalks are either
water fountains.
They either don't work, they're dysfunctional, they stink, they're not clean. The list goes on and on. So if we had, for example, a city that was just beautiful, like maybe Toronto was clean, like Warsaw, Poland, and everything worked beautifully, then we could kind of rationalize, at least we're getting what we're paying for. That's not happening. right now. So then the question is, so I think it's overspending, but I think because there's so much ideology entrenched in this progressive left government at City Hall that money, I fully believe money's being siphoned. The renaming of Dundas Square is a clear example.
Do you, speaking of ideology, do you have an ideology? Where do you sit on the political spectrum?
My ideology is the name of my organization, IntegrityTO. Do what's right, be honest, be transparent, be accountable, and stop injecting ideology into governance and city government. We don't want all that. We don't need all this identity politics and African land acknowledgements and injecting DEI and race politics into procurement and things like that. We don't need that. We don't want that. We want the streets to look good, the streets to work, the parks to work, the transit to like the basics. So my ideology is back to basics city governance. Do what a municipal government is supposed to do and nothing more and nothing less.
Let's look at municipal governments across this continent and world. In the Western world, since COVID, we've seen large cities, urban centers, a prevalence of, open drug use, the erosion of city infrastructure, what we've just been talking about. What's your response to folks who say, like, sadly, this is the new baseline for major cities in the Western world and that Toronto is no different?
We have to redefine what the baseline looks like.
Yeah.
This is a very poor baseline. People are now putting Toronto, and I've heard this several times from people on social media, people are now putting Toronto in the same category as Portland, San Francisco, and Vancouver.
Really?
That's not a good category to be in. But I completely understand why they say that, because again, take a look around. Your senses don't lie, right? And we've never seen Toronto in this state before. Now, there's a lot of factors at play. We're still dealing with the COVID fallout. There was a lot of economic fallout from very draconian COVID policies that ran amok in our city. But it's now being exacerbated by Olivia Chow's policies. You listen to any Toronto Board of Public Health meeting, and they're still talking about decriminalizing drugs and harm reduction.
And you're at these meetings. Like, let's remind our viewers that, like, Daniel's informed here and that he's attending, he's looking through the minutes, he's going to the places, he's speaking to the counselors who often aren't fans of him and have lobbed criticisms at him. Like, you're there, right? So you're seeing governance in action in this city.
Yeah, and what I'm doing, hopefully effectively, is I'm able to take the meeting minutes and the policy discussions that are happening in the committee rooms at City Hall, and I can contrast it with how they're playing out on the streets. And share it with the masses, and people are starting to put two and two together. And now they're realizing why we're in this world of hurt that we're in.
What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen them spend a bunch of time on when as the city burns outside, for lack of a better phrase?
There was this one video I actually posted, and it went viral. It got over 150,000 views, but it was basically Etobicoke Lakeshore City Councilor Amber Morley. In a committee meeting at City Hall. It's called the Confronting Anti-Black Racism meeting. And they spent 25 minutes, it was about 15 people in there, debating what equity data is. And they kept
the definition, they're not even getting into the actual
equity should
results.
Should we include trans people who live in this area? No, but equity should also include racialized people, and they couldn't even answer what a racialized person is. Anyways, I posted it. The bottom line was this meeting said the word equity 75 times in 25 minutes, and they still couldn't figure it out. And this is all happening on our dime. I'm convinced that there is a massive amount of financial waste that is dedicated on all this identity politics nonsense. They have all these buzzwords called racialized people, equity deserving groups. Well, what is an equity deserving group? My dad is bald. Is he equity deserving? He doesn't have the same privileges you might have with your wonderful head of hair.
Thank you.
So it's all nonsense.
And then as this goes on, Daniel, obviously, focus on the symbolism and the wording and phraseology. Meanwhile, Black and brown Torontonians outside cannot afford a home. They can't afford to live in this city.
And every reasonable person in this city, regardless of what race or color you are, understands now that this is all nonsense and it's not fostering harmony between races because it's inherently divisive. If you as a government are going to be giving free handouts or privileges or advantages to people based on identity markers, everyone's going to suffer. The quality of service is going to decline because you're no longer merit-based. You're now giving people opportunities based on how much melanin they have in their skin. And so are they truly the most qualified person to do an important job, whether it's, working on our sewage systems or other infrastructure systems? So that's why we're also seeing, in my mind, a decline, and there's less excellence in the city because they've really, really gone all in on DEI.
You mentioned some of this stuff in council, and I believe a councillor under their breath called you what?
The word that rhymes with basist.
Racist. And what's your response to that?
Well, when it first happened, I was utterly shocked and thrown for a loop because I thought, maybe I was being an idealist, but I thought in the good old days politicians would respect their constituents and not resort to insults. But after a while, I started to realize this is a standard part of their playbook, where if you challenge their worldview or something they're saying intellectually, and they can't resort back or they don't have a good argument, they're just going to resort to insults. And that's what happened to me, and I was really shocked that he called me that. But that confirmed in my mind that our city leaders are not of good pedigree when they resort to. I would never insult a constituent of mine, no matter how much I disagreed with what that person said. Even if they insulted me, if I was in that position, I'm a member of public office. Just by virtue of that job, I'm putting myself under the microscope, and I got to be able to take the heat. Mr. Moist couldn't take the heat and resorted to calling me a racist, which was appalling to hear. And what else can you say?
Let's say this. What are you optimistic about? Just ending things off. Like you talked there's a lot of doom and gloom going on.
Yeah.
Beyond the Jays, is there anything you're optimistic about in terms of, what can be done, solutions that can be made to fix some of these problems?
Yeah, I'm optimistic about the future. I'm optimistic about a new crop, a new generation of thinkers, citizens, and leaders who are going to run for office at all levels of government and bring a new common sense perspective back to the city. I think this city of Toronto has dealt with, when you think about it, city council has been an NDP stronghold for a better part of a couple decades now. And look where we are. And I think every Torontonian is going to have to look in the mirror and ask themselves, is this truly where we want our city to be? Are we reaching our maximum potential? And I think most people will say under the current leadership, the answer is no. So the silver lining is there's going to be an election next year. And that's a great opportunity for people like me and others to take our city back and get our city back on track and bring a renewed sense of spirit and energy and good governance to the city of Toronto.
That is Daniel Tate. He is Executive Director of IntegrityTO, a civic advocacy group bent on promoting transparent and responsible municipal governance in this city, Toronto, TO, T-Dot, Hogtown, etc. Thanks for joining us. This video is brought to you by Airbnb. This month, Airbnb is a sponsor of the Hub's YouTube channel. Governments are rightly focused on addressing Canada's housing crisis, but when they spend time restricting short-term rentals like Airbnb, they're not focused on what's most important. According to Statistics Canada, the number of short-term rentals that could potentially become long-term homes amounts to only 0.6% of Canada's housing stock. Canada needs almost 6 million new homes by 2030 to achieve affordability, and a closer look clearly shows that building more housing, not restricting short-term rentals, is the only real solution. To learn more, go to airbnb.ca.